We're going to eventually get this going. Hey, Brian, you know what time it is?
What time is it, Pete?
It's 8 o'clock. It's time for Leadership and Laughs with Pete and Brian. Let's play our theme song.
It's time for Leadership and Laughs with Pete and Brian.
Hey now.
Hey now.
Now.
Are we live? Is this happening?
What? Good gravy. Can someone, I can't wait till you're in charge of the board and I don't have to deal with this ever again. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to the best hour of your week. Leadership and Laughs with Pete and Brian. Brian, we've already got Jilly Jill listening to us. Terry, our buddy there, and one of my favorite listeners of all time, PBGBF84CBM82.
That's right.
And they've already commented this better be good. So we'll kind of see how that goes. I hope everybody.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you pronounce that however you want. There's this old Brian Regan bit. If y'all never are you looking for a clean comedian, his name is Brian Regan, and he used to do this bit a long time ago where girls who spell their names funny, he would always make fun of them. So someone would say, hello, my name is Jill, and he'd go, hey Jill, and she'd go, it's pronounced Gillet. And so he would always come back and go, my name is Brian, BRIANYQX ampersand, and it's pronounced Brian.
Brian.
So that's what Keith from Tennessee is coming in as today. Man, I'm excited for today. There's, as everybody knows who's listening, Brian, there's so much going on in the world right now. Different states are opening, different rules, different regulations, people losing their jobs, people getting furloughed, people getting laid off, some money coming in, some money not coming in. And we're like, can we just take an hour of our week, Brian, and just talk about leadership because that's our strength, but have some fun while we're doing it, buddy.
Yeah, we can just, talk about the funny parts of leadership. We could talk a little bit about, the dumbest parts of leadership. That always makes me laugh.
And just kind of have some fun with it. So again, thank you for listening, Music Lady, Michael Glaze Leadership. Thanks for coming. And normally, Brian, we start off with a segment called Leading Off with Brian Voggy. But no, because change is good. We're going to do a brand new segment today. Can you believe that?
I can, because it's last night.
I know. This one's going to be called There's a Leadership Lesson in Everything. And because we got to find a theme song to go with each segment, I hope that you're pleased with this one, Brian. Allow me to sing along with this opening music that's for our new segment. There's a leadership lesson in everything. Oh, hold on. Wait.
Oh, that reminds me.
There is a leadership lesson in everything. There's a leadership lesson. It's in everything. You can find a leadership lesson in everything. You can find a leadership lesson just about in everything. You can find a leadership lesson in everything. Right, take it. You can find a leadership lesson in everything. Okay, sorry.
I love it. That's
all right. That's our new theme.
And that was sung live. That wasn't even pre-recorded. That's a deep cut right there.
So Brian's going to lead us off today talking about there's a leadership lesson in everything. So let's get started, buddy.
So here's how this segment works. I'm going to bring up a topic. It'll be something that everybody likes to talk about, something big that's going on. Let's say, for instance, and this is not today's topic, but let's say I brought up the Tiger King and Carol Baskin. This is something that, oh my gosh, it's a hot button for everybody, right? People.
Yeah.
Right. And then it'll be Pete's job as we talk about it to figure out how this is going to tie into a leadership lesson.
Yeah, we can find leadership lessons in anything, buddy. So you bring me your best challenge and I'll see what I can do with it.
All right. So today, based on that very upbeat song that you just sang for us?
There's a leadership lesson in everything. Sorry.
I love it. Yeah, so we're just gonna continue with that theme, that happy little theme, or we're gonna talk about something that everybody's buzzing about. See what I did there? Murder hornets.
Dun, dun, dun.
Murder hornets. Text in if you've heard about murder hornets.
Right.
So apparently people are all in a all in a rage, all
a tizzy, a buzzing tizzy, if you
in
will.
a twist, if you will, over the murder hornet. Michael says they are huge. They are. So let's talk about what a murder hornet is.
I've got to be honest with you here, Brian. I'm looking forward to this segment because there's been so much other news going on, buddy, between, coronavirus, election year, all that. This made the headlines for me for about an hour and then fell to the bottom of my news scrolling feed. So bring this in. I'm ready to learn more about this because I have zero knowledge of these bad boys.
Okay. So, likewise, this made it to the top of my, news feed or Reddit feed. And all of a sudden it kept popping up. And I have a sweet, funny, awesome kid who is scared to death of flying, buzzing insects. And so when I saw this, I pulled my wife over and I said, we cannot tell our daughter about murder hornets. She'll never sleep again. But the headlines go, they try to scare you to say, oh, the murder hornet has invaded the United States.
Right.
And what a murder hornet is, I don't even know why we call it that. It's actually called the Asian giant hornet.
Okay.
So for starters, let's go ahead and tap down the fear a little bit. Only two.
Well, hold on a second. Let's jump back in because I'm going to jump in with my leadership lessons. Someone has renamed it because they are on the diversity and inclusion team, and so you cannot call them Asian. What are they called?
It is actually this is the non-racist but actual name of the insect. It's called the Asian giant hornet.
We do not want to get the Asian community, Brian, up in arms, so we will not call them the Asian giant hornets. They are just the murder hornets. Thank you. That's your leadership lesson, and continue.
I'm going to go ahead and I challenge that. I challenge. I'm going to say that Asian giant hornet wasn't scary enough to sell the news. So they called it the murder hornet.
Okay.
Plus, we're not scared of offending the murderer community. Only 2 of them have been spotted in the United States so far.
No way, really?
Yeah. This is all over our news feeds, and the reason is it's sort of like it's like a plane crash. It really hardly ever happens, but when it does, it's sensational because the murder hornets stings are capable of killing people. Okay, I'm going to just let that sit.
Let that sit.
Now, here's the thing. So our honeybee stings.
Correct. So our wasp stings.
Exactly. So when we talk about the sting of the murder hornet is capable of killing people, so if you're allergic to bee stings, that could happen as well. But I wanted to point out that the University of Florida, now that's Florida's flagship university.
Wow, absolutely.
University of Florida's medical entomology lab, Dr. Lawrence Reeves came out and said, listen, if there are any animals most deserving of fear, it's not the murder hornet, it's what? What do you think it is?
The fire ant. No?
Not the fire ant.
Okay. Rephrase the question for our audience. They can type in. What is the question?
Right. What do you guys think? If there are any animals most deserving of fear, it's not the murder hornet, it's the
coyote?
No.
Rabbit? Are we in the insect world?
We're in the insect world, and I'm going to point out once again that we're talking about the University of Florida, Florida's flagship university.
Oh, you're doing one of those things.
You see what I'm doing?
Yes. So what we're saying is, yes, thank you, Michael Glaze. The gator should be more feared than the murder hornet.
Okay, no, it's actually the mosquito.
This is the dumbest segment ever so far.
Mosquitoes,
better
Pete. They're one of the most.
Keep going.
This makes it fear the mosquito. Mosquitoes are one of the most dangerous animals in the world to humans because of the diseases they can transmit. You see, so mosquito-borne illnesses actually kill more than 700,000 people a year.
No way! I did not know that.
Right. Whereas the Asian giant hornet, or murder hornet, is thought to kill about 50 people a year worldwide. And again, that is mostly due to allergic reactions.
Okay, that makes sense. I want to remind all of our listeners who type in that if you are related to me, please do not mock myself or Brian during the show on the texting process. Thank you. So yeah, that's a very good point. So what's the leadership lesson in all this? You mentioned it a little bit. If it bleeds, it leads. Right. If it's going to sell papers, it's going to lead. And mosquitoes are killing how many people a year? 50,000, possibly
700,000
people. We've got. So what we want to be careful for from a leadership perspective, Brian, here's where I'm going to say, let's be careful not to use hyperbole to get the results that we want. We may have people in political roles these days. We may have people in leadership roles these days. We might have people who are your managers who are like, well, just the facts aren't going to get me what I'm looking for. So I'm going to use an extreme amount of hyperbole to drive whatever message or to influence people. So my point of that would be, don't do that because people will eventually see through it, because people like you and I will come on and say, hey, murder hornets, there's just two as opposed to these other.
Right. Issues. And you know what? You tied it back perfectly when you say don't do that. And I just want to say this for my sweet daughter who's scared of flying insects. The murder hornet probably doesn't sting people, they say, unless it feels threatened. So if you leave it alone, it probably won't bother you.
Wow. Hey, and, let's ask our audience again. Those of you who are on with us, you're texting in, you can call in. If you see a leadership lesson that goes on throughout a theme here, what's your leadership lesson of leadership hornets? How would you take lovely?
It's the leadership hornets.
They're having a meeting right now. Brian, that's a good, hey, I like that. That was fun. Any closing thoughts that I've sort of cut you off with? Are you feeling, does that have everything?
No, just, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and say that both murder hornets and mosquitoes suck. And and we really want to stave off stings from either species.
And if you are a man listening on the line right now, I want to remind you of the greatest line ever from a TV show, Designing Women. And I believe this was shared by Suzanne Sugarbaker and related to me every day in my life, Brian, from my wife, Sherry, who says the following: the man should have to kill the bug. That's an unwritten rule in our household. Doesn't matter where the bug is, the man should have to kill the bug. So good to see Sean joining us. Thanks to everybody else who's kind of come in, Brian. Let's kind of see what's oh no.
That's some ominous music right there.
Brian, I thought we were going to have some fun today talking about leadership lessons and everything, but no, it's time to look at the idiots, Brian, the morons, the stupid people who exist in our world in leadership roles or not, that guide us all to ask the following question.
They did what?
Oh, it's everybody's favorite segment, Brian. They did what? And this is where, if you're just listening to us for the first time today, this is where we take a few minutes and we look at leaders and roles that they have and dumb things that they do. Sometimes we'll go to the EEOC website, Brian, and look at some legal issues that managers do wrong. Sometimes we'll pull them from the national headlines, Brian, and we'll say, look at these bad managers. And today, because I wanted to go a little more light, a little more fun, if you will, we're going to keep it close to home. And lucky for me, I live in the beautiful hamlet of Trussville, Alabama. It's just outside of Birmingham, Alabama. And it's like Mayberry, Brian. Nothing bad ever happens in
The
Trustville.
deputy sheriffs only have one bullet.
Absolutely. They've got those little red lights on their cars. They drive around. It's a beautiful place to live. Unfortunately, Brian, after hearing these stories of what's happened in Trustville over the past 2 weeks, it's going to lead you to ask the following question.
They did what?
I can only do that a certain number of times per show because
so
it hurts my
happy.
voice.
All right, listen. Go ahead.
Yeah, there was a show that actually inspired this podcast that Pete and I used to listen to back in Orlando, Florida, back in Central Florida. It was called the Phillips File, hosted by the great Jim Phillips.
Rest in peace.
No, he's just retired. I don't think he's dead.
Oh, my bad.
Anyway, there was a segment on there where they had a prize pack, and one of the characters used to his catchphrase was, "Wow, look at this!" Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
And that's where I got they did what?
Yeah, it's
So,
perfect, man.
Hats off to our good friends there in Central
The
Florida.
Phillips File. There are no good ideas, just recycled ones that people use over and over. All right, so Brian, here's what's happening in Trustville, Alabama. People are getting tired of staying inside. People are being tired of just, I think the stay-at-home order is starting to get to people. So we've got a stabbing at a Firehouse Subs.
Oh,
No! Yeah. Why would you stab somebody at a Firehouse Subs, Brian?
now I've been to Firehouse Subs, and my kid really likes the cherry limeade that you can make there at Firehouse Subs. So I'm guessing that somebody ran out of cherry limeade.
Either that or someone asked for it fully loaded and he was done with being fully loaded. So this is a guy named Jarek. It happened on April 21st. He was employed at Firehouse Subs, and they believe he stabbed his 17-year-old coworker in the neck when he arrived to work. So witnesses say the two were involved in a verbal altercation the day before. So it's just beautiful that, I'm going to go into work today, Bri.
Yeah.
I got a lot of things to do. I've got to shred the lettuce.
Yeah.
I've got to clock in. I've got to wash my hands. I've got to check my schedule for the week, and then I'm going to stab. I got to stab my coworker before we get.
Because we had an argument yesterday. So
because we had an argument yesterday. So here's something else that just makes me, again, small town. Although Trustville's growing, but here's the quote from release from Firehouse Subs. We've been made aware of a recent incident at a location in Trustville, Alabama, involving 2 staff members, blah, blah, blah. Quote, the safety and security of our staff and our guests remains our top priority. And that's just funny for me to see that, like the word remains is funny. Hey, people are getting stabbed, but I want you to know, we're not changing our priorities.
No.
You might think now this is going to go lower on our priority list. No, we're still going to keep safety and security of all our guests at our top priority. So leadership lesson here, Brian, if you have an altercation with one of your coworkers, don't come to work armed with a knife. Or it doesn't say what he actually stabbed him with either. And by the way, let me say, the victim is okay. I mean, he had non-life-threatening injuries. We would not do this story, Brian, if he passed. Like Jim Phil.
We might.
Rest in peace. All right. Moving on. Something else that's going to make you say what?
They did what?
Brian, do you ever sit around your home during this time?
Yes. Every day.
Do you ever sit around your home during this time? Now, you work remotely all the time, so you're kind of used to just hanging out at home and kind of relaxing. But man, for people who have been coronavirus up at home, they're starting to kind of lose their cookies. So sometimes you might
they're vomiting.
They're literally
losing their cookies.
So, hey, thanks to all the 18 listeners, by the way. We've got some more listeners on right now. We want to thank you all for joining us. Soleil joined us in, Brian. Tony's here. Surfer Fox. Buglet, who hopefully enjoyed our segment on bugs just now. So thank you all. Thank you all for tuning in. We're doing They Did What? And apparently, Sunny, I'm not going to give you her last name, Brian, but her name makes me smile because her name is Sunny. She's 37 years old. Mm-hmm. And the Trustville Police Department last week got a call of a woman walking down the street naked.
Oh, she was naked and sunny.
Naked. What a great first name. So according to the police report, Brian, around noon, an officer responded to the 2800 block of Floyd Bradford wrote, after dispatch received several calls from concerned citizens. So not just one. Can you imagine 911, what's your emergency? Naked woman. Well, thank you, we'll check on it. 911, what's your emergency? There's a naked woman walking down the street. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, file that under calls I would never make.
Yeah, you and I would be driving down going, no, dude, don't call. Don't call.
I'd call you.
Yeah. Thank you. Shouldn't her name have been Mooney and not Sunny?
Oh,
well done. You got a bell for that. So here's the fun part, Brian. The officer located the woman, and the officer said when he asked her what she was doing, she said she was walking. Question asked and answered. Gotta love. First of all, the officer, can you imagine pulling up next to this person and just your first question is going to be, hey, what you doing?
I'm walking.
I'm walking. What does it look like I'm doing?
You know what? Whether I'm charged with upholding the law or not, I think at that answer, I'd be like, okay.
Okay,
right.
Thank you. Wear lots of sunscreen. Have a good day. Cover up. So when the officer asked her to get in the back of his patrol vehicle, the woman then took off running.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So now she's going to be arrested for lying to a police officer. Whoa! You said you were walking, lady. Now you're running. The officer was able to catch up with her and took her into custody. And here's the final story in the news release, Brian. She was booked into the Trustville City Jail. She is considered innocent until proven guilty. Like we have to write that in the news story. So, yeah. Hey, want to let you know, naked woman was walking down the street. He asked her, hey, let's not judge her yet. She's innocent until proven guilty. So leadership lesson from this for me, Brian, is no matter how crazy it gets and how tired you are, when you go out for your daily walk,
yeah,
let's put some clothes on.
All right.
Put some clothes on. Hey, Brian, this last one, man. I'm going to combine two of my favorite things, crazy people and Walmart, which is going to make you say what?
They did what?
Good stuff.
My high schooler has a bedroom that's just on the other side of my office, and this is her Wednesday morning alarm clock, is me screaming, they did what?
It's so funny because my son's in the bedroom next to me. I'm in the office, and every morning he goes, good show, Dad. And I said, but all you heard was me because you didn't hear anybody else. He's like, yeah, it was good. So just me randomly yelling things. Yeah. All right. So again, from the Trustville Police Department, Brian, they've been so busy this week because of all the people staying at home. They had to arrest a man for theft of property after he tried to steal over $2,000 worth of merchandise from Walmart. Now, let me tell you how he did it, buddy. He's facing the charge after a loss prevention officer at the store said that Justin removed a stroller from a box. Okay. He placed the stroller back on the shelf and then stuffed the box with assorted merchandise.
Yeah. Yep, that's what he did.
Now there's I have so much to say about this. So part of me, George, thanks for joining us. Sloan, appreciate you being here. Part of it is, okay, I would have done it differently, Brian. I would have taken the stroller
and
put the things into the stroller and push the stroller around with maybe a blanket covering all the stuff so people would think it was your baby sleeping or something. But no,
that's what people do.
That's what I would have done if I was unethical. But no, he takes the stroller out of the box, puts the stroller on the shelf, and just goes and puts soap, food into the. And I guess he just now what it doesn't say is did he pay for the stroller? I mean, like if the stroller is worth $100 and you stuff the box full of $2,000 worth of merchandise, and I just pay $100 for the box on the way out, and no one notices. But
that makes sense criminally, yes.
Right. I'm trying to think like a criminal, but I think he just tried to walk out of the box. But here's where the leadership lesson comes in, Brian. The loss prevention officer at Walmart was able to stop him before he left, and then police responded to the scene. The items in the stroller box had a value of $2,225. His bond was set at $2,500. So he almost had enough for his bond. He was so close. But my leadership lesson with this is if you're going to be a criminal, Brian, we've got to get better. We got to get better. I mean,
Yeah.
we've got loss prevention officers everywhere. There's got to be a better way to get $2,000 out of Walmart besides taking a stroller box. Did he see it on YouTube? Did he see someone else do it? I just don't. I get frustrated with people who don't do their best, and this doesn't seem like it was his best work.
No, I'm going to tell you. When I worked at Champs Sports,
Oh, give yourself a bell. Based out of the home office is in Florida somewhere, correct?
well, probably, but last time we said something was in Florida, it was really Minnesota.
Hey, Willie, thanks for joining us. So tell me your champ story.
All right, so yeah, when I was in Champs, we had a bust, and I don't remember how it was they caught this person, but they were doing exactly what you said. They had a stroller, and we thought there was a baby sleeping inside, but it was really being loaded up with lots of Champs Sports merchandise, and walked out of the store. And they have those little tags on that go off when you walk through the door, but the stroller was all lined in the inside with tinfoil or aluminum foil. I don't think those are actually made out of tin anymore, but it was all lined with foil, and they were able to walk right out of the store with it.
Well done. See, now that's, again, if you're going to be a criminal, be the best possible criminal, the smartest one that you can be. Don't just load stuff in. Now, we had somebody when I worked at Disney, there's a lot of, I shouldn't say that. There's some internal theft going on. We had a person who used to work in guest relations who would skim off the top, and she would put the cash into her shoe every day before she went home, and then her drawer would always be light. She did that for about a year. We did that about a year, but before she was caught. And of course, me working at Disney and being young, I'm like, I can't believe people would do that. I'm in shock that would happen. The security guy pulled me aside and said, get your head out of your so-and-so, son. This happens all the time. Like, just because you're working at Disney World doesn't mean that everybody is full of pixie dust and magic. So that takes care of our segment today, which was called what was it? New podcast idea. Pete and Brian teach criminals how to do it better. Man, I like that. I like that. If we were criminals, here's how we would do it. We got to get you all involved. It's time to get the audience involved, Brian.
Let's do it.
Favorite game show. It's time for what, Brian?
It's time for Over Under.
Over and Under from Television City in Hollywood. It's time for Over and Under.
Over Under. It's everyone's favorite leadership statistics game show.
Over and Under. That's what my weight is doing over the past 2 weeks.
Hey!
Thank you.
You got a bell. Over Under. Here's how it works, Pete.
Tell us how we play, Brian.
I'm going to present you with a few interesting and timely statistics that I've Googled as recently as last night. And
excellent show prep, really.
And you're going to have to decide if the actual number is over or under the number I give you. Now, I will say this to our audience. I have kept these hidden from Pete, so he doesn't know what he's about to hear. He's going to hear all of this for the first time.
That is correct.
We don't allow any cheating.
Right.
So, hi to Alan. Good to see you. So Tony, we want to encourage you, right? Tony, Alan, George, Jilly. We got Terry and Sherry. And we want to encourage all of you, hello, Surfer Fox, to go ahead and type in your answers, play along. Yeah. Feel free to give us a call. Give us a call. Hit the little call-in button, and Pete will take your answer, and you can make a comment or just try to guess live. You
want to get your 15 minutes of fame. Or 15 seconds.
Yeah, I was going to say, we don't have that kind of time, Pete.
You literally will be on the Pete and Brian, what's the name of this? Leadership and Laughs. I almost called it the Pete and Brian Show.
That's pretty much.
Not going to do good. All right, so with no
we're going to try to guess over or under.
Let's play over or under.
All right.
Hey, by the way, real quick before you get started, 2 quick notes. Number 1, I am 3 out of 15, Brian.
Okay, you're doing good.
The past 5 episodes, I have gotten 3 right out of 15. Number 2, if you all play along and get all 3 answers correct in the text box of over or under, you will be mailed a Leadership and Laughs t-shirt. So that's going to be exciting for you. Congratulations.
Dude, we don't actually have those.
Well,
no-
okay.
there's
Well,
no
if you all will just
justification.
share, the show.
I'm going to look in my pantry and see if we have any of those tiny little Tabasco sauces. Maybe you get one of those.
Or you'll be getting a UAB team building shirt from 2001
Ooh.
my wife has in her drawer as well. So here we go. Get us started, Brian. Everybody's
All right. So Tolero Solutions, they're an organizational development consulting think tank. They recently conducted a big workforce survey where they asked employees, what is the single biggest issue impacting your work performance?
What is the biggest issue impacting your work performance?
What is the single biggest issue impacting your work performance? Now, all of these respondents can only pick one thing. So, these are going to be. I actually have the top 3 responses.
Okay.
That we're going to try to guess the percentage on.
Okay.
Now, before we get to the numbers, let's see if you, Pete, or any of our listeners can guess right out of the gate any of the top 3 responses. The question again, what is the single biggest issue impacting your work performance?
All right. Everybody type those in. I, of course, will go and say low tolerance for risk. I like that. COVID, bad boss, bad manager is coming in from Keith. Bad leadership. Oh, nice. Says one of my direct reports. Thanks, Greg. Rolled right off his tongue, didn't it? Well done. Elfie says having to wear masks. What are the top 3 topics that are affecting your work performance based on this study? Has anybody gotten any of the top 3 right so far, Brian?
Well, yeah, you guys
Excessive
are
meetings. Thank you, Taria. Excessive meetings. I'm also going to throw up there lack of accountability. Managers not holding people accountable, perhaps, to get work done. Procrastination. I like that. Laziness. Laziness. Says Piffig Gibbons in 82.
Procrastination, planning skills, transparency. Well, I'm going to go ahead and give several of you a bell because you're pretty close of it. Pretty close to at least 1 or 2 of these. We're going to start with lack of trust in management.
Okay. Yes.
All right.
And when most people, I think, write management and leadership, most of it probably is lack of trust. So, okay. Got that.
Lack of trust in your management. What percentage of the employees said lack of trust in management was the biggest issue impacting their work performance? And I'm going to give you an over-under of 40%.
Gosh, I love when I guess in my head ahead of time because I already had the number of 60% in my head. So people like my friends Michael, Joseph, Taria, everybody is saying over. I'm going to go with the audience, Brian. The answer is clearly going to be over 40%.
You're exactly right. It is over 40%. It's actually 45%. So
lower than I thought.
It's lower than you thought, but again, this is 100% of people can say anything they want. So still, it's impressive that nearly half of the respondents said that they have a lack of trust in their management, and that's very interesting because like I was telling my own children that trust is the foundation of any successful relationship, whether it's personal or professional. Right. And when that trust is broken, it's really hard to kind of put it back right. It's hard to repair it.
You ever listen to, Stephen Covey wrote the 7 habits of highly effective people. His son, Stephen M.R. Covey, wrote a book called The Speed of Trust. He also has a video series out called The 5 Waves of Trust. Where I work at the personnel board, we do a lot of talk of trust. And so if you're like, well, how do I build trust in my organization? There's lots of resources, Brian. In fact, Patrick Lencioni, who wrote books like the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team and all those, one of his basic foundational things for leadership, Brian, is trust. It's like if you don't have that, it's like on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you don't have food and beverage, if you don't have shelter and a place to live, nothing else matters. Trust is foundational. So that was the highest one. Is that right?
That was the highest one. So to your point, that the rest of these are going to be lower than 45%.
All right, I'm going to go lower for the next one.
All right. What percentage of employees said lack of resources?
Oh,
was the
my
biggest
word.
issue impacting their work performance.
I
Lack
can't
of
believe I didn't
resources.
think of that. Give me a
I
number.
don't have the resources to do my job, Pete.
It's funny. We talk about, I'm sorry, give us the percentage so people can type in while we're.
All right, lack of resources, we'll keep it at 40%. Over or under 40%?
Well, it's got to be under because you said 40 was the highest on the last one.
No, I said 45 was the highest.
Oh, I'm going to go over then. Over. It's like, right, I'm going to go over.
What do you guys think? Is it over or under 40% of the respondents said lack of resources was the biggest issue impacting their work performance?
And it's G Bone going down he's going to CBS 42. He's going 42. He's giving us an actual number. Lusho Creates has joined us. Thank you for joining us, Lusho. Hey, Brian, when we talk about this idea of what's this one about?
This is about what is the single biggest issue impacting your work performance?
Yes. Is it listening? Okay, it's lack of resources. You made a joke earlier, but this was on the Disney annual employee engagement survey when we worked there. One of the easiest questions to drive employee engagement was the statement, "I have the tools and resources I need to do my job well." And it seemed no matter what you gave people every year, that question always got hammered. It always got low numbers because no matter what you give people, because really what you have to do with your employees, Brian, is you have to get with them and say, what are the basic needs? Okay, I need a desk. I need a computer. I need a printer that works. I need the air conditioning to be okay. I need the ceiling not to leak on me. I need to have a snack machine close to me. Can I have a parking space where I feel, all these basic things that managers go, that's not important. You don't need that. You don't need a printer that works. You don't need quick access to hand sanitizer. And when we think about this question now, I have the resources to do my job well. People are going to start thinking about things like face masks and hand sanitizer. And
Elfie said face masks.
Healthy things. So, all of a sudden, this idea of I have resources to do my job, what do those resources look like? So I'm going to go with the audience who said over, by the way, as you're going through this.
Well, I want to say one thing to what you just said. It's interesting when we used to ask that question, and I've asked that at subsequent organizations I've worked at. Do I have the resources I need to do my job well? And what we found was resources were different to a frontline employee, and that was a lot of the things that you named, or to management. Usually to management, resources meant people, human resources. Mm-hmm. So, and that was also an interesting look into what people think. So what percentage of employees, Pete, said lack of resources was the biggest issue impacting their work performance?
Over 40%.
Over or under 40%?
Over, my friend.
All right. I don't have my little button that goes bum, bum, bum. Oh, no, it's under. Of course it's under. You were right. You were right at first.
I got in my own head.
You got in your own head. It's 30%. So okay. Lack of resources, 30%.
But it's still a third of all employees say that's the one thing. That's the one thing that's kind of driving me nuts. So, hey, for those of you who are joining us right now, like Annette and people like that, the T-shirts are coming. Feel free to type your answers in here and feel free to share the show. If you're enjoying this, go ahead and hit the share button as well. We get more points and more likes and more things if you share the show and stuff like that. So we appreciate that. Let's get to number 3, Brian, of this segment that's called Over or Under.
All right.
I'm going to leave the music on for this one because it makes me happy.
All right. So, Pete, what percentage of employees said lack of communication? Communication was the biggest issue impacting their work performance. Over or under 20%?
If the top 3 are, this is nice, huh?
What happened just now?
It's like a nice little bridge in the music in our theme song. Oh, we're back. Okay. It's
that was the musical equivalent of squirrel.
Yeah. And by the way, this is why we have no sponsors. No one will ever. They're like, this is not a show. This is not a podcast. This is just we should call this 2 dudes rambling about nothing. All right. So we're going to go with over 20%.
Over 20% is correct.
Come on, let's go.
Answer was 28%. Nearly as many people who said lack of resources. So when these numbers are rounded up or down a little bit because there's the fractions of percentages, but yeah, almost as much as lack of resources, lack of communication.
Well, let's do this. Let's ask our audience, Brian, the top three of the question. Ask the question and give the top three again.
Okay, so out of these top three, what do you think would be the single biggest issue impacting employees' work performance today?
And we want you to answer on your behalf. So as you're listening, grab your keyboard, grab the chat in there. Which of these three, because these are the top three, are affecting your work performance? Go ahead, Brian.
Lack of trust in management, lack of resources, lack of communication.
Keep in mind, some people are listening who are my direct reports, so choose your answers very, very carefully. Oh, mercy. Yeah.
Michael says resources.
Lack of resources, sure. Yeah.
Jilly says communication.
Tony says lack of communication. Don't make me guess. Yeah. That's a funny, and let me be very clear here, Brian. As we get into lack of resources, where I work in local government, we're about to see, and many counties and local government agencies are about to see a big hit in resources. There's a finite amount of tax dollars that come into these cities, and when sales tax goes down, and when occupational tax goes down, and when people are working in organizations that are closed for even 6 weeks, that's a lot of revenue. So all of a sudden, in fact, I was just reading a story yesterday from Portland, Oregon, that said they've got like already a $53 million budget gap, and they've asked every single department to take a 2% pay cut. I'm sorry, not a pay cut, a budget cut. And they're trying to fix the problem without furloughs right now. So they're trying not to do furloughs, trying not to do layoffs, but they're saying if it gets worse, that's the next step. So when you say that one of the top three things people want is resources, as leaders, we've got to be ready to tell people you're not getting the resources you need coming up. And here's why. I mean,
and we have to be more creative with how we do that.
Yes.
I mean, yes. We're not going to take toilet paper out of the bathrooms, but you're getting one ply.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, we may not be able to leave professional development in the budget and send employees to conferences, but I can maybe get you a $99 subscription to Masterclass or something like that. So we as leaders, those of you who are listening, we as leaders have to be more creative in how we distribute resources. No, the employees still need them. Printer ink, we always need, Brian. Paper, we always need. But if someone comes and says, I'm sorry, we've got to cut off the supply of coffee, you can't have complimentary coffee anymore, we can't start screaming. We have to have enough business savvy to understand the times that we're in and define, nice to have resources versus need to have.
Yep. That has to do with the resources, but I want to go ahead and I want to give PBGB a bell because they typed in, isn't effective communication dependent upon trust? And I do think those two things are linked. When you have a lack of communication, that is when you start to, your trust in management dwindles, I think. So those two, I would say between lack of communication and lack of trust in management, right there, you've got, 70, it was my understanding there would be no math, but I think it's about 3/4 of the respondents just tied up in those two.
My wife and I were watching most Will Ferrell movies. To our international listeners, I hope that's a dumb thing to say. They probably don't have Will Ferrell movies in other countries. I don't even know why I said that. Everybody knows who Will Ferrell is. We were watching one of his movies a couple nights ago called House Party. You ever see that?
I have not seen that one yet.
It's the one where he starts a casino in his own home to help pay for his daughter's college education. The point is, it's kind of inappropriate, but I enjoyed it. But there's he doesn't do math well. Yeah. So anytime someone comes up and goes, oh my word, we could make twice that amount. He's like, is that like $8 million? And they're like, 10 times 2 is 20. He's like, oh, I can't do math. So when you said that made me happy because I don't do math very well. Either sometimes. So, hold on 1 second.
Wait a minute. Is that a parade?
Oh my word. Is it time to take a walk down Main Street, USA of the Magic Kingdom?
I'm standing up out of my chair. I'm doing the truffle shuffle.
If you can see Brian, I have him on Zoom, and all I see is him dancing right now because he's imagining an ice cream, a popcorn, walking down Main Street as it's time for the Daily Disney. Ah, this takes me back. Is that the Kids of the Kingdom I see? There's a stage show.
There's a stage show over there. There's characters. They're waving at me.
Is this post-coronavirus Disney where we can't touch the characters? Oh, there they are, 100 feet away. Wave, kids. No, you can't hug them.
No,
Sorry.
don't hug.
No touching anymore. It's time because Brian and I worked at the Walt Disney World or the Walt Disney Company, however you choose to brand us. For combined over 25 years. It's time to talk about the Daily Disney. This is where we finish the show strong and talk about a Disney lesson that you can apply in your organization. Brian, what have we covered the past couple weeks?
Oh my goodness. We've been going through what Disney used to call the 7 guest service guidelines.
That is correct. And because we haven't worked there in a long time and there's extreme confidentiality, we have no idea if they still are intact. But we feel they are because we have a few people who work there who say, yes,
spirit at least, I'm sure.
We're still doing this. Babu, thank you for joining us as well. Glad to have you. Make sure you share the show, type your notes, call in if you want to during this segment. If you've got a Disney story that ties in with this, we'd love to hear it because a lot of people who listen have been to a Disney theme park or maybe even to a Disney store. Brian, every organization needs to have what we call non-negotiable service guidelines. I don't care what industry you work in, you probably have customers of some kind. But if you don't have non-negotiable service guidelines, your employees, your cast members, as we call them at Disney, aren't going to know what the basic expectations are. So we've got 7 at Disney in the theme parks division. And last week we went over number 1, which was make eye contact. I should have asked if you listened last week, go ahead and type for a free Leadership and Laugh t-shirt. Type in what was number 1 last week. It was make eye contact and blank. If you remember make eye contact, Jilly Jill, she got the make eye contact, and it was something else at the end of that. G-Bone with the smile. Give him a bell. Well done. Make eye contact and smile. Good job, Joseph. Today we're going to number 2 from Disney, which is greet and welcome each and every guest.
Wait.
Yeah.
Every guest,
Brian. Greet and welcome each and every guest. Now, here is what is hard for us as leadership professionals, and that's smile and wave, says Mikey. That's the Penguins, and that's universal, so we can't talk about that. But yes, just smile. Just smile and wave, boys. Just smile and wave. But yes, greet and welcome each and every guest. The funny things about these is, y'all, they seem so simplistic. So maybe your HR department or your policies committee will actually say things like, well, why would we, have to write that down? Don't people know to make eye contact and smile? Like that should be just understood. But if you don't write it down, Brian, if you don't enforce it, you don't hold people accountable, then we don't actually, then we don't do it. And as leaders, and Babu's asking a good question, what are the leadership qualities? Believe it or not, Babu, in future episodes, we're going to cover leadership qualities. But the reason we talk about these customer service guidelines is as leaders, we have to exhibit these same behaviors internally with our cast members as well. So just because we tell them to go out and make eye contact and smile and greet and welcome each and every guest, it's our job as leaders when the employees come in every day, Brian, to greet and welcome each and every guest. Hey, you're late. Hey, get out on the line. Hey, get your bank and get out there. Hey, we've got no. You should be, thank you, leading by example. You should be greeting and welcoming each and every one of your employees as well. So do you all do that on a daily basis, especially if you work in the manufacturing industry? Maybe you have a bunch of employees. Do you go out and say hello to each one? Do you greet them? Do you say, how are you? That's really, really important. And the reason it's embedded into us at Disney, and I have to be careful here, Brian, because I don't want to untether, as Daniel Pink says, the profit motive from the purpose motive, because Disney has a purpose, the theme parks do, but the profit motive is always there. But we also realize that if you greet and welcome each and every guest, the intent to return goes up. If every single person who comes into a Disney toll plaza, they come into a resort, they come into a restaurant, they come into a water park. How are you? Glad to have you today. Good to see you. Welcome. We're glad to see you. Welcome. We're glad you're here. Welcome. We're glad you chose us. Welcome. We're glad you're spending $5,000 to $8,000 with us and not with someone else down the road. Greet and welcome each and every guest is huge.
That's right. You gotta and it's also greet and welcome each and every guest. It's not just the ones who you feel comfortable talking to, or the guests who look like you, or like everybody. Disney's for everyone, right?
Right.
So, greet and welcome each and every guest.
We had a side conversation there. Keep going. So Disney's for each and every guest. So the word every, you're exactly right. You have to actually focus on every guest. Brian, we can talk introverts and extroverts here too, because those of you who live in have a clarity around introversion, man, it's going to tire me out to every time I'm working in a retail shop at Disney, when I make eye contact, to look at somebody and say, hey, good morning. Hi, can I help you find something? Hey, glad you're here. Hey, hey, princess, that's a beautiful shirt you're wearing. Hey, what? You're exhausted at the end of the day. So again, you can greet people with nods and with smiles and with hellos. So just because we have employees who live in the world of introversion doesn't mean that you can't still have that greet and welcome each and every guest point.
Exactly. So I think those are some great tips on leadership and making sure that your employees are doing the best guest service or customer service that they can possibly provide.
We use right now, and Brian, one more point on this before we sort of wrap this up. We're using a program called Slack right now, and with because my team is all working remotely. So we used to all be in an office. There's 6 people in the office together. We live in Cube World. And when everybody comes in, it's a good morning. It's a how are you? It's a greet and welcome. It's a make an eye contact and smile. How do you do that remotely? Well, as their leader, and in fact, I didn't even do this. So, leading by example, my team said, let's communicate on Slack. Let's create a Slack group chat during the day. And it's amazing that every morning, without any sort of, pushing by me as the leader, everybody, the first thing they do when they get up before they start their computers, they get on Slack and they're like, good morning, team. Good morning, everyone. How was your night? Good to see you. Hi, everybody. Didn't sleep well. And then I put things on there like, I've got a rash this morning. And they don't appreciate that. But
I'm wearing the same socks I wore yesterday.
Yeah, I'm typing in, I'm here, but I'm really not. I'm in the Cayman Islands. But you can actually put stuff. You can put that. Hey, thank you, Zimbabwe. Thank you for listening. Lusho Creates is listening from Zimbabwe. So another one of our international listeners today, as we're about 6 minutes away from sort of wrapping this up. But the point is, Brian, find other ways to greet and welcome people. Find other ways to welcome your coworkers to work. If you can't I can't call each person in the morning, but I can get on Slack and say, good morning. Hi, team. Glad to have you, and create that connection with them. Make them feel valued.
So you're saying even when you can't make eye contact and smile in this time of social distancing, you can still find a way to greet and welcome each and every guest. I love it.
That's going to take care of the Daily Disney, Brian. We got 4 minutes. If you want to call, you better call quick. If not, hang in there, because our very last segment is called Did You Know, as Brian gets ready to take us out for the day, Brian.
Well, Pete, did you know? I love it. So this is a segment we bit off of ESPN Sports Center back in the day.
Another one of our sponsors that we'll never get.
Yeah. So hashtag not a sponsor. Earlier, Pete, we said that trust is truly the bedrock foundation of any successful relationship, both at work and in your personal lives. And you're playing me out. And when it's broken, it's extremely hard to repair. So, when employees feel that they can't trust leadership, they feel unsafe, like nobody has their back. They tend to spend more energy on self-preservation and then other job hunting opportunities rather than performing their own job. And here's the did you know? Talent acquisition costs and employee turnover costs increase when that happens. So estimates put the talent acquisition costs and employee turnover costs at between 150% to 200% of the employee's salary.
Okay, I've heard numbers in the past around it costs $1,000 to hire somebody, $2,000 to hire somebody. What you're saying is when you put all those costs together, talent acquisition, recruiting, all that stuff, you're talking almost 150% of their salary?
150% at least
Oh,
to
my
200%. In other words, it's twice as economical to just keep your employees and keep them happy.
Man, let's do it. Let's do it. That's what the show is all about, is sharing a few leadership lessons with you all. I had a good time today. We talked about funny things happening in Trustville. Brian and I had a new segment where we all sung along with the new theme song. That was pretty exciting. You can find leadership in everything. We talked about the three main things today, Brian, that cause people to what? To leave an organization, to not be happy,
to impact their work performance, right? And those were lack of trust in management, lack of resources, and lack of communication.
And lack of communication. Yeah. We finished up talking about Disney and, making eye contact and smile, greeting and welcoming guests. And we finished off by telling you that it costs a lot to keep you hired. It costs a lot when you leave. It costs a lot to train more. So keep that in mind this week. Hey, what's our closing message, Brian? Give him a safety. Final thoughts from Brian.
Give him a safety?
Give him a safety. I was going to say give him a safety message, and I talk so fast sometimes that the words come out. Right now, Brian is NFL safety.
Everybody,
2 points.
everybody, take care of each other. Be kind and wash your hands.
Well done. We'll see you next week. Tell your friends. Leadership and Laughs with Pete and Brian. Thanks, everybody.